Welcome everyone to this new session, and today we're going to be continuing on our work, and we will be focusing on two key concepts today, which is intercept and accept. And I want to say great job, guys. So this is day 19. So let's quickly go through the use case. Sales and territory analytics need to distinguish two critical segments for February 2024. The first one is customer who satisfy both the territory criteria, meaning territory ID equals to 1, it is between 1 and 5, and the revenue criteria is between 1,000 and 2,500. So that's one set of data. And the other one is customer who satisfy only the territory criteria but not the revenue criteria. Now, at this point, what we did in day 18 is very similar to what we're talking about in terms of the data set itself. So we're just going to use the same data set or the same query for what we're going to do today. And then we're just going to introduce those two key commands. Alright, so the action here is to produce two data sets for both scenarios of February 2024 to downstream analytics, sales ops, and marketing activation workflows. Okay, right. So guys, this is the expected output for the exclusion, and this is the one for the intersect. So let's quickly go to our lab and then see and also try to discuss this concept. So I'm going to copy what we did on day 18. Alright, so let me quickly copy the query for day 18. Alright, and then we're going to just drop it in here, and then I'm going to comment and run that quickly. Let's comment, and then let me run this for you guys. So here, we're just going to remove this, don't need it. Alright, so here we were discussing union and union all, and we understand that concept now. So now let's first of all talk about except. Okay, except command. Okay, so what do we mean by except? So except, what it does is that it compares two queries and returns rows that appear in the first query but not in the second query. Okay, so that's really the concept, and some use cases is what we are beginning to look into, which is like exclusion, or maybe you're trying to see non-overlapping segments. Also, you want to look at customer missing certain behavior. There are various use cases, okay? But in this case, we are using it mostly for for exclusion. Now, here you can see we have this query that satisfy one criteria. This is customer territory, okay, and then we also are comparing with this guy that has the revenue criteria. Now what we are saying here is basically that return customers, that's and territory that are in this query but not in this query. So basically customers and territory in this query except not in this query. And if you are used to Oracle query, you'd be able to relate. Except is really more or less like a minus for in the Oracle system. All right, so now let's run this. So at this point, what we are looking for is customer and territory that exist in this particular territory criteria, and then what does not exist in the revenue criteria. So let's run that. Okay, let's see. Yeah, it should work. Okay, because we didn't comment this. Okay, saying this doesn't exist. Let's quickly look at that. Customer territory does exist. Okay, and we have to troubleshoot, guys. Okay, it should work. Okay, beautiful. Now you can see that means that we have 35 customers and territory that do not exist in the revenue criteria. Okay, and we can do vice versa as well. We can also say the ones that exist in revenue but not in this criteria. So this is just to understand the concept of except. Okay, so basically if we look at this this particular customer and territory, you won't see that in this particular criteria. All right. Now, having understood that, let's go back to intersect. Okay. And by the way, the except would meet one of the requirement, which is basically the exclusion part, and then we're just going to order this in descending order, and then we're going to run it again. And when you look at this data, it's going to be the same thing with what you have here, right? So basically it meets the territory criteria but not the revenue criteria. All right, so let's go back to the intersect. Now the intersect here, it works more or less like in an opposite manner. Okay, basically what they check for is that we have two queries, and then you want to see what is common between both. So when we are talking about, intersect, we are talking about, two basic, comparing two basic queries and returning only rows that appear in both queries. And use cases will be multi-criteria qualification like the one we are looking at, or high intent targeting, behavior-based precision, and so on. So but in the real sense of it, you're basically looking at, okay, what customer ID or territory ID I have here, but I also have in this criteria as well, and return that for us. And here we're just doing a union, a lab join back to be able to pull other attributes, associated to this particular query. Okay, so now when you run that, you can see this is where both criterias have been met. This might look at a very easy concept, but it's very powerful. When you begin to deal with some very complex table structure, you will find this really helpful. And so that's where we're going to end for today. I hope you've learned something new, and I want to say thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you in the next session.